The Big D, WDRC, remembers the way it used to be.
You know,
What?
I cannot believe that you have actually gone this far and gotten this guy. Now, he's been to the reunion before. He has been here.
Yeah.
And it's great whenever he comes to town. But the fact that you were able to connect with him, he won't even take my calls. I don't know how you got him.
Well, it wasn't easy. I had you to give me this phone number.
Oh, okay. And he doesn't have caller ID for you, so
Yes,
you were safe.
exactly. He thought I was some salesman on that. But I did sell him a new car, though.
You did. Good.
But yes, on the phone, we have here in the corner right there, you see.
Oh, my God. Look at
Jim
that.
Harrington
Look
of
at that.
WDRC fame.
Wow.
And
Hi, guys.
there he is. Hey, Jim, how are you? How you doing?
I'm doing good. You guys sound like you're doing good, too.
Yes, we are. We haven't killed each other yet after all these years.
Oh, if you could ever see the outtakes. Yep.
Oh, God.
Yep. My eyes were halfway back into my head. Yep.
Yes.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
So, Jim, where are you from? Where are you right now?
Well, I live out in suburban Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, of all places. I have since like 1981.
Wow.
And I only thought it was going to be a temporary move because if you had asked me years ago, what do you think of Pittsburgh? I would have thought, who wants to live in Pittsburgh? Smoky City, steel mills, things like that. But by the time I moved out here, the city had gone through what they call a renaissance, and it's a beautiful city. And I don't know, Dave. I don't know whether in your travels whether you ever made it out to Pittsburgh, but it's a nice town.
No,
I actually was there
Well-
for the Three River Festival that they have over there?
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
Three Rivers Festival, Arts Festival.
That's beautiful. I was there for that. Yep.
yeah. I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever been in Pittsburgh. I've been in Philadelphia. I have.
Close enough.
Oh,
Pretty much the
that's
same
only
thing.
That's only 300 miles away.
Yeah, it's close to right. You can walk there, my friend. But no, I haven't. I've been up to Gettysburg. I was there.
Which is nice, yeah.
Yes, and that's an area you frequently travel to.
Yeah, I kind of grew into a history buff over the years, and it's kind of a sacred place. You visit Gettysburg usually with reverence. You realize that maybe the biggest war in the history of our country was fought on that site. And if it wasn't for the fact that a terrible battle was fought there, it would be a beautiful national park by itself.
Yes. Yes. And
But if I would recommend anybody who's looking to go somewhere on a trip, you can go to Gettysburg, and only 45 minutes away, maybe an hour, is the battlefield of Antietam too.
Oh, wow.
Which is another beautiful battlefield. So, but anyway, you didn't contact me to talk about
no, I said to my
battlefields.
But thanks a lot, Jim, and hope to see you
Hey,
again
nice
soon.
talking to you guys.
I said to my wife, I says, we were there, and I says, Jim Harrington lives in Pennsylvania. I says, too bad I couldn't contact him, not realizing he was not too far away.
Why didn't you try to call him?
I didn't think he couldn't get your number from you.
Yeah.
He didn't want to ruin his 2 days.
No, and I do want to point out though that Jim, after working at most of the major radio stations, primarily, a lot of them in the Northeast and in New York and all over the place, that he became very successful, much like yourself, in the world of film. And actually, some of the stuff children can watch. But what was really interesting? Now, Jim, and I think this is really cool. I remember when you were at DRC and just a young jock starting out, and a new family and all that stuff. But you always had the eye for the movies, and you had an opportunity to be in a major movie. And
was.
and that's what I'm telling people. I'm lining up the story.
Yes, he is.
So, anyways. He wanted to be
An alien. Wasn't it an alien?
No. Well, Jim, tell him the story how you had the opportunity to leave short notice, like spur of the moment, to leave the radio station and try your luck in the movies.
I heard that they were looking for extras in Martha's Vineyard for the movie Jaws, and it was supposed to be a big movie. And I found out like on a Friday morning or Friday midday. And I can remember saying to my wife, I got to be there. I got to go see this thing. I got to do this. I'll call Charlie. And I called your dad, Steve, and I talk about short notice. I said, Charlie, they're shooting a big movie in Martha's Vineyard. Steven Spielberg is directing it, and it's supposed to be something special. And I'd really like to be there. And Charlie said, well, when are they shooting it? I said, well, they're shooting it now. Well, when do you have to go? I said, well, I'd like to leave in an hour. And, you know, your dad, other guys I worked with would have fired me. Oh, you can go, just don't come back. Your dad smiled and he said, geez, talk about short notice. You know, he said, go ahead, do it. I said, I'm going to be gone for a week. He says, yeah, okay, no problem, go, you know, be careful. And he let me go. I literally gave him like an hour, maybe 2 hours, but not a lot of notice. And
he ended up, you ended up in the movie, right, Jim? There's a couple of
Yeah,
powerful scenes in there.
what scene were you in?
I tell people I was bait. If you remember the scene where the two fishermen go on the dock,
Yeah.
Yep.
and they take a hunk of meat and put it in the, you know, hook through it, and it has a chain. It's chained to the dock, and all of a sudden you see the chain get taut, and the dock gets torn apart, and the guy falls in the water and goes for a Nantucket sleigh ride, as they would say. Mm-hmm. Well, there was two guys who did that. The guy whose face you see is the guy who did it the day before me, and then he left Martha's Vineyard after it was done. And then when they got the dailies back, Spielberg said, we need more footage on this scene. We need just more coverage. So they got a guy who was basically the same height and build, and that was me. And they sent me down with one of the guys who worked with the crew down to Vineyard Haven to get dressed up, get outfitted in the same clothes the guy had. I had a lumberjack's jacket. I had chinos, you know, tan khakis, and I had boat shoes and a silly-looking fisherman's cap. The difference was I had then, and I do have now, a mustache, and the guy in the movie didn't have a mustache. The guy you see doesn't. So that made it so that every shot that I was in, I had to put my face in the water, so you couldn't see they didn't want to see any part of my profile, you know. So
that's you.
But that's me. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the scene of you and the other guy on the dock. Now you have you're a tall guy, and he's standing there, and he's take a wide shot, Andy, on this, and you have a kind of arms like this, and I said, that's Harrington. I can tell you a mile away. That's Harrington. Now Jay McCormick went with you too. He was in there. He was one of the people on the beach scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jay McCormick was? I never knew that.
Yeah, Jay went, and I thought you guys went up together. And
no, I didn't know.
Yeah, Jay said
this is the first
he was
time
the guy.
hearing about it.
He was the guy that's supposed to be filling in for you when you gave your notice that you were going to leave in a couple of hours. Jay said, "Oh, I'm going."
Yeah, but he was one of the people on the scene where they evacuated the beach.
Wow.
And that I couldn't spot Jay in that, but
you sure? But I could definitely spot Jim, because Jim, didn't they also have some shots of the back of your head swimming away from the thing?
They had me climbing up the broken part of the dock.
Yeah.
You know, the scene. I'm climbing up the stairs. I'm climbing up the dock, and I'm slipping. My foot's slipping.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see the dock in the background is done it's turned around, and you see the dock is coming at me. You never see the shark, but you know it's pulling the dock, the broken part of the dock. Yeah. And I got out of I was lucky I lived. You know, it's funny, I saw this, I got to tell you guys, I saw this at, there were movie theaters over in the Manchester Mall.
Yep.
I don't know, was it Parkway Center Mall? And is that what they?
Manchester Parkade. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Parkade. Okay, so I went and saw the movie alone. My wife, we had small children at the time. At the time the movie was released, we had an infant, and my wife was too busy being an adult, and, and so I went
Unlike
over
her
to,
husband.
I went over to see it. I went over to see it by myself, and in that scene where the guy, or the fisherman makes it, and he gets out and he beats the shark and doesn't get eaten.
Yeah.
The audience they clapped. And I felt like standing up and saying,
It's me. It's me.
Sit down, you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. But I figured it'd throw me out of the theater.
Yeah, they're
But,
telling you to sit down. So, Jim,
exactly. Hey, you in the front, down.
I want to ask you,
They-
how did you get? How did you wind up at DRC, at WDRC?
How'd you first come to yeah?
I had been working in Providence for Bob DiCarlo.
Oh, okay.
Bob
Yeah.
DiCarlo, who ended up doing mornings at DRC.
Yeah.
And I was doing part-time at WICE in Providence. And I also was doing full-time work at a station called WSAR in Fall River, which was a rock station. And it was 5,000 watts, and it was nice. But Fall River and Providence, they weren't working with Charlie Parker. Charlie had an amazing reputation at that time. It was like he was the dean. He was the guy who, if you want to learn how to be a jock and how to be creative and how to be a personality, you try to get into DRC. And I was a kid, and all I knew is I wanted to work at DRC. And so one night I heard there was an opening. I threw together a tape, literally, in the production studio at WICE, and I went to the post office, packaged it up, and sent it on to Charlie, never thinking that I'd ever hear anything from him. And he called me, and he said, can you come down? I'd like to talk to you. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't know how I was going to handle it. At the time, I think I was 22 or 21. And this was a big deal. And I think I bought a new outfit so that I would look just right. And I remember driving down to Hartford by myself. And this was before Garmin and Waze and all those other things. I had my Rand McNally map, I think, on my front seat, and I was praying I wasn't going to get lost. I made sure that I was there early, and I went in, and I thought, oh my God, it was like I'm going to meet Charlie, and he's going to be so formal and so dignified and so,
Professional.
And honest to God, I sat down and I talked to him, and within 15 minutes, we're laughing, and within a half an hour, we're telling each other jokes, and he was the easiest guy to get to know, and a pleasure to work for. I mean, I worked with a lot of guys since then, and a lot of bigger stations, but I've never worked with anybody as professional or as wonderful to work for as Charlie Parker. What a terrific boss, and more than that, he ended up being a terrific friend.
Yes. Yeah, you were.
And really too, Jim, I mean, I have to point this out every now and then. It really was, no one really ever worked for him. They all worked with him. And he would always say that. I mean, he out of all the guys that, that were on the station, it was probably, he was like the biggest kid. And he knew how to he would also see your talent, and then he would develop your talent into being what it could be. Like, there are a lot of these guys that were stuntmen that pulled crazy stuff on the radio, and a lot of the things that you read about in the newspaper. My dad would always go, he did what? Now, the chances are that he knew everything that was going on. So if he hired somebody because that particular talent was known to be a bad boy or a shock jock or anything else, he would move him up a little bit more, and he would go trying to push that limit a little bit more. However, being the boss, being the program, he did what? He was the best at that.
I got to tell you, Steve, you never. I learned early on, never try to pull the wool over Charlie's eyes. I think I went to work there, and the first thing I did, I worked on the FM overnight, which was, and I only did that for a short time, for a couple of months, but it was the overnight, and I thought, like at 2 in the morning, at 3 in the morning, who's listening?
Charlie.
Well, I found out early on that he must have set his clock every so often to wake up in the middle of the night.
He never turned the
Because
radio off. He never turned it off.
Every so often, like at 3:30, I'd get a phone call on the hotline, and it was your dad, Steve, and he would have heard something, or maybe I didn't do a break or something like that. He'd say, "Just checking to see whether you're there." No, he made his presence known.
Mm-hmm.
You learned early on not to try to think around your dad.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
There was a guy.
that was a good thing, guys, because as you go on with your career, you learn responsible radio. You know, you don't try to do things that are out of line. You know, you show up on time. They're paying you to do a show. You do a show. You know, you concentrate on your breaks. Make sure that your production is good. You know.
No, he was one of those. I remember a story I've heard a couple times where a guy down at New Haven, I think it was probably PLR, and a guy at DRC, every night, overnight, they would do a thing where they could time out the records. And they thought it was the greatest thing in the world, where the guy in New Haven would be running his record at the same time as the guy at DRC.
Yeah.
And one time my father called in and says, "You know, it was kind of funny the first 2 or 3 times, but I think it's time to stop that now." And it was like the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that Gary DeGrade? Sounds like him. You know.
I got to tell you, I actually did that. I shouldn't say this, but I guess the statute of limitations is up. But I did it.
Hold on, Jim.
In New York.
Hold on, Jim. Okay, they're up now. Okay, you had 3 seconds.
Okay, thank you. I feel better. Timing is everything.
Yes.
I was working at CBS FM, and a guy named Dan Foley. I don't know whether you guys knew Dan Foley. Dan was working at CAU in Philadelphia, and they were both oldie stations, and they had a Watts line. It was a wide area telephone system, and so you could call toll free within that system, and so I would call them, and we'd time it so we'd play a certain record at exactly the same time. Us and me, and so you would think that you'd grow out of certain things, certain times you'd regress in your maturity, and that was one of those times, you know. But I never got caught in New York. In New York, I guess we were too far away. You know, it's one thing to have the same record playing in New Haven and in Hartford, but Philly was too far away.
Well, plus, you know, New Haven, I mean, DRC had a great signal down that part of the state anyways.
Yep.
But
Especially
Jim,
the FM.
what would you say if we were to go right from the moment you started at DRC, back when you were just, a whippersnapper, and through the amount of time, first of all, how long were you there? And if there was some one thing you could point out in your run at DRC, some specific moment or maybe a contest or maybe something that was happening in the business. So first of all, when were you there until what year did you leave? And then is there something
I was
specific?
There from 1970 to about close to 75. It was 74 and a half or something like that. Had a good run there.
So you went from when FM really didn't matter to when it was really starting to come into its own, right?
Exactly. But you asked a good question. The most memorable thing that I remember probably was put your hands on the Toyota and you'll never let go. It was Charlie's. Was it Lynch Toyota?
Lynch Toyota.
They still have the front page of the Hartford Courant with that promotion on their wall at Lynch Toyota. It's still hanging up there today. Yep.
Yeah, that was an amazing
I
thing.
remember I think we did the first or one of the first Mobile Studio D broadcasts.
The first.
From that remote.
Yep.
I think that the engineer who ended up being, I guess, the general manager, Wayne Mulligan.
Yeah.
But I think Wayne was still hooking stuff up just before we went live, and I can remember sitting.
Yeah, I had just come from the radio station across the street, 1080, and I left on a Saturday and started at DRC on Sunday. And after my shift, I was doing a board job, board work then. Wayne said, he says, I got to go to Blue Hills Ave. We got to put some stuff in the Mobile Studio D. I said, the mobile what? And we went in and, because that used to be in Bloomfield. And so we wired up some things. And then I remember him taking that out to Lynch Toyota. And you worked in Mobile Studio D several times. And,
Oh yeah, it was a big deal. You know, nowadays they use mobile homes. You know.
yeah.
And you know, nobody really does remote. I mean, usually in the business now, when you say you're doing a live remote, you're not. I mean, they may check in with some sort of on-air talent, like, you know, down in Lynch Toyota, where they're having a big Toyota marathon right now. So Jim, how is it down there? And you do 3 or 4 words, and you check in the next hour. But you guys were in there in the mobile unit with the turntables doing a show.
We did show. You're exactly right. We did the show from the location, and it was a big deal. You know, you got dressed up in your best 1972 outfit.
Leisure suits.
Yep, exactly. And
actually, we have a picture of Jim right over here in the Mobile Studio D behind us.
Oh my God! Look at
I think you're wearing a leisure suit there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I probably was, and that could be one of the last times I ever wore one.
Yeah, but yeah, they used to call that the fishbowl.
It was, but you know, it was kind of neat.
You were
I think they had an air conditioning unit in there, so it was cool. Sometimes it was cold.
Yep.
Other times it wouldn't work and it would get hot. It wasn't perfected, I don't think. But considering, I think Wayne built that from scratch. Didn't you guys?
Yeah,
he built it from.
Well, he bought the shell of it, and before I got there, and then when I got there, they were just doing the finishing touches on it, and I remember dragging that thing. John Landry, another engineer there, John Landry and I dragging that to East Hartford for a remote in East Hartford. And,
from a car dealership?
Pardon?
Was it from a car dealership?
No, this was at the...
Showcase Cinemas?
No, before Showcase... Burlington Coat Factory.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It was in that mall, and so we left at about 2 o'clock in the morning. We figured we'd get in there, and Wayne said to me, he says, "Yeah, there's the pole there, and so far you'll see the wire. Just got to go up, get the ladder, and get the wires down." I go, "No problem." So we drive in there, and there's one car parked right where we gotta park, and it's now 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God.
And we're sitting there. We tried to get into one of the stores to see whose car it was. We figured it had to be a help cleaning person. And probably around 3:30, somebody come walking out very leisurely, and we're standing there. We got the big Mobile Studio D, the car, and the guy goes, "Oh, Big D's here." I go, "Yeah, and you're right in our parking spot." So all we did was just go roll it in, and just left it there and locked it up, of course. And then the next night, Danny Maruschek and I went in to go wire it up, and that's when I broke my nose at JM Fields. That's another story.
Gosh.
That's another story.
Oh my God.
But anyways, so that was my experience with the Mobile Studio D, and then I have another one.
Dave, did you drive it? Did you have to, did you tow it?
Tow it, yeah. I've never towed a vehicle in my life.
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting part. Wayne showed me how to hook up the tie bars on top. And you have to be careful because you let that thing slip, you could break your shin bone.
Yep.
And I got that in there, and we're going down Silver Lane Road, and it was right after the ice storm. We had an ice storm, and I remember John is behind me driving, and I put my brakes on, and it's going. It's still going because you got this huge thing behind you, and I'm going, and John's hollering out the window, "Stop! You got it!" I said, "I can't," and we finally said. Then we turned into the parking lot, and that's when we saw the car there. But that was white knuckles. But I have to say, bought a camping trailer many years later, and I knew how to hook up the tow bars. I bet you did. I got a good experience from that. So.
You know, you probably all the while that you guys were driving that down, you probably were thinking, I can see the headlines now. You know, radio station, mobile studio destroyed in car accident.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. That's
But nothing ever looked like that. I mean, no other radio station that went out or anything else really looked like that.
Yeah.
You were
you're
towing
right.
this huge thing, call letters on the side, the whole glass front on it, because whenever we
Yep.
make appearances,
Yeah.
the crowd's just swarming around guys like Jim. And I mean, and Jim, I would imagine, just to have that, bring that whole live aspect there of people in front of you must have been terrific.
yeah. Yeah, go ahead,
You
Jim.
guys there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
Oh, I for some reason you were disconnected for a second. I couldn't hear you. I started to panic.
Yeah, we were talking about you saying.
I'm sure you were.
Yeah. And driving down from Blue Hills Avenue, the station was still located in Hartford.
Yep.
And we're driving down there, and this is like 2 o'clock in the morning, cars honking the horn, and I go,
Yeah.
who the heck is out here at this hour besides us? And, that was a lot of fun.
We had some great times at the RC.
Yeah.
I remember the motocross that we had over at Two
oh,
Guys
yeah.
Parking Lot.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yep. And,
I mean, Charlie also. We also. Do you remember the? Was it Manchester Motors?
Manchester Honda.
Manchester Honda.
Yeah.
No, Manchester Honda. They had these.
Mini
They
bikes.
don't make them anymore. They were trikes.
Yeah.
They were 3-wheelers.
yeah, you guys were
And-
racing them on the ice, weren't you?
Well, no, they had me doing it on a. There was a dirt track that was behind. They had set up behind.
Oh
it, I
yeah,
guess.
I remember that.
And honest to God, I'd never driven a motorcycle in my life, a tricycle. And they told later on, I guess Honda pulled them because they were dangerous.
Yeah.
People were they were breaking their necks when they were going around. They went to the 4-wheel off-road vehicles, but they were fun to drive.
Well, I remember.
but
I think McDonough was telling us about him and Billy Hart racing the mini bikes.
Mini bikes on ice.
on the ice in South
Yeah.
Windsor for Manchester
Yeah,
Honda.
I had just started at DRC. and they
That
were
was
talking
crazy.
about it.
I never did that.
Yeah.
Do you remember the balloons, the hot air balloons? I didn't go up in them. I think Ted Dallacou went up in them.
Ted Dallacou. I engineered the show. Ted Dallacou went up with a Marty unit with Wayne, and they
And
were
a Marty unit. just
Marty
explain
unit
it.
is a small transmitter that we can do remotes
Yep.
without using phone lines, and so he goes up there, and I'm conversing back and forth with Ted via an intercom system. Ted is on the air,
Yeah.
and a lot of times, same thing with Mobile Studio D. If we lose the communications
Yeah.
between somebody,
Yep.
I remember working with Bob Craig and the tone button, because it would hit a tone. Remember hitting the tone button?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
would fire
Yeah.
the commercials from the studios in Hartford. Well, the tone
Yeah.
button went out. We lost the tone button. So Craig would go, he said, right here on the Bob Craig Show, and we'll be back after we hear something from Balch Pontiac. So, we go, and right after this, as soon as it hit this, and the show it went flawless. And I don't know how we got through it, but we
A
did.
little improv.
Yeah.
I went up in that balloon when they had that promotion, but I never. I think Ted traveled in it. I think he went. So I think I could be wrong, but they took him across South Windsor.
Yeah, well, they went all over Hartford area. They went South Windsor all over.
Yeah.
91. In fact, I think Charlie or somebody was told we had to stop because it was causing a lot of traffic issues. So they had to cut that part short because we were trying to go to 10 o'clock in the morning. And of course, with the balloons, you have to start early in the morning, like 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we went with that, and it was a little scary. And but Ted was up there during that whole time, and it was amazing.
So Jim,
he had more courage than me.
Yeah.
so Jim,
I think I had a family at the time too, and I don't think Ted
No.
was married. That I could.
Yeah.
it's easier to do that if you're single.
Yes,
you don't have to
but,
put up with the
Yeah,
whole.
exactly.
What was it now, Jim? When it finally came time for you to move on, How did all that come together? I mean, it must have been difficult, especially working for Charlie. It had to be difficult to have to make that decision and tell him, or did you not leave of your own free will and you were carried out with a bunch of stuff and thrown into the trunk?
No, actually yeah. No, I wasn't escorted by security or anything, but I got to tell you, I actually left twice.
Yep.
I left the first time. I got hired by a station in Boston, WMEX,
Yep.
to do afternoons, and your dad was very understanding. You know, I think I got hired like in March or April of whatever year that, I guess 73, and so I gave him my notice. I said farewell. We hugged each other. Hey, it was great, you know. And off I went to Boston, and my wife and I had bought a house in Vernon, on Lake Street in Vernon, and at the time, the real estate market was really depressed, much like it is today. No, I'm just kidding. And I was commuting every day from Vernon, Connecticut, to the combat zone in Boston.
Yep.
And it's something you can do when you're 26, 27 years old, but boy, it was getting old fast. And I did it from like March until September or October. And I finally said to a guy named Bill Rock, who used to work at, he used to work at DRC too, who had a phenomenal career, a very nice guy, another nice guy. And I said, Bill, I can't do this anymore. I'm killing myself, and the weather's going to only get worse. You know, the winter's going to come on, and I thought I would be able to sell my house and move up near Boston, and I haven't been able to. So I had to quit MEX, and I had nothing. And I called Charlie, and I explained the story. I said, Charlie, I'm kind of stuck. If you have anything, and come to find out, he had something, and it was another full-time position had opened up, and I didn't miss a beat. He hired me again, and I worked for him for another year and a half.
I'll tell you the story, but can I tell you the story? I don't know if you remember this. I remember your first day on your second time around. You were working afternoon drive with Dick McDonough. Dick on the AM and you on the FM. And I remember the three of us getting on the elevator, going upstairs, but a fourth person came on the elevator, and that was Larry Hall. And
oh, yeah. I remember
Larry Hall.
Good jock.
Yeah. Larry Hall looks at McDonough and says, oh, you going to work? Yeah. And then he looks up at you because he knew you, and he goes, yeah. He says, he says, what are you up to? He says, oh, I'm going to work. And and then you went, oh, you let the cat.
I didn't know.
I know you didn't know, and I'm
Didn't know.
He thought that Charlie had let Larry go.
Okay.
Because Larry was just summer relief, and so Larry's like, and Larry looks at me. He says, "So Dave, do I have to see Charlie when I come in?" I says, "Yeah, I think you need to see Charlie."
Yeah.
And you were so bummed out. And,
I felt bad.
I mean, you said, "I'm sorry, Larry. I'm really, and he took it really well. Took it like a pro, and God rest his soul.
Dave, he was a good jock too. Charlie didn't hire bad jocks.
No,
He knew the sound. He knew the sound he wanted, and it was funny because we were saying that recently. After his departure in 1983, when you go back to the talent in 1983, there was some good talent, but you definitely lost that Charlie Parker sound to the station as far as the talent went.
Yeah, I heard it when I'm producing a video that we're going to show at the reunion. It'll eventually be on YouTube, and I could hear the sound from '83 on, or from basically '84, and I hear voice. I says, "Boy, I know Charlie didn't hire this person. He didn't. No, he didn't hire." And he, hi, WDRC, and I'm like, whoa, and so because I one time heard a person's voice, and I said, what year was that? And I had to look back. I said, '84. Charlie didn't hire this guy.
I remember one of the guys that after my dad was in the hospital, he had a clipboard and he was listening to the audition tapes. And he was, my dad would always review them all. This guy's a clipboard, and he's grading them in all these different categories. And one was quality of your resume. It was like, I said, Paul, you know who you are. I said, you put the tape on, you play, and if he sounds like he's talent, you bring him in. What, are you going to hire somebody on their quality of their resume? His voice didn't make it, but boy, he went to Harvard. It was it. It was really, and it was the Big D sound. It was a certain sound that he wanted, and people used to even call him from time to time, said, oh, it's like a little BZ. He liked a lot that was going on in Boston. He had certain stations that he liked the feel of and the sound of, and he wanted a consistent sound, but he wanted personalities. He didn't want the exact same sound, but he wanted it to fit the station. And that's a whole different thing now.
Now, Jim, when you
left, he really did make a major market station in a medium market.
Yeah.
He found, and most of the guys that I know who worked there, they all went on to major markets. And it wasn't an issue with them. It wasn't a hard thing for them to do.
Right.
No, and he loved it. I mean, he always said that he loved to see the guys fly, and he loved to see them go on to bigger markets. And, we'd be listening to TV sometimes at night, and you'd hear a national break or something, and, he'd hear some of these guys, and that just went on. One of the guys was, I think Bill Rock was doing some great stuff, and a lot of the guys like yourself,
St.
I'm
James,
sure.
Bill Hart.
Yep.
Remember doing stuff for NBC and the Olympics and that.
And a lot of the voice stuff that Jim did in bigger markets, he would love to hear guys that were with him at one point in time and be happy for him. Versus a lot of PDs, program directors, would try to, clip your wings. He also wasn't somebody that said, here, let me show you how to do that. He knew how to take your talent and kind of like push you in the right area as a true program director. So I think, he never tried to squash anybody, or even you when you wanted to go out.
The other thing is, he didn't.
Go ahead.
He didn't shortchange us. I mean, he gave us 100%. He was a real program manager. When he was working with you on something, he was working with you. He was, and also he didn't kid you about what he expected. He knew that at some point in your career at that level, you were going to go on because of bigger money, bigger stations, He knew this. And he never sold you like you're going to be with us forever until you retire. He always let you know that this is an interim step. Mm-hmm. I mean, he didn't kid you. Charlie, you knew what you were getting with Charlie.
Yeah.
As a boss.
And unfortunately, unfortunately, Charlie got it from me when he went into the production room.
No, you and he had fun in that production room. I remember some of the moments.
Oh, some of the blooper tapes will show you just how much fun they were having.
Yeah, I got tons of. When I moved to Florida, I spent my winter months just digitizing stuff that I've been wanting to do forever. And we were moving out of the house, and Mary Lou says to me, she goes, you got to get rid of those tapes. You got to get rid of those tapes. I mean, that thing was half the moving van. So we got them at the house, and then I just started digitizing them. And I remember laughing so hard when Charlie and I were doing stuff, and and the talking, and it was hysterical, and it really made my job fun. It really did.
What memories! And Dave and Steve. It seems like it was only yesterday. Absolutely. When you think about it.
Yep.
Like I'm talking to you guys, and it's been years since we've been together, but it seems like it was only yesterday. Nothing has changed.
Yeah, I've been out of ESPN for 30 years. Not out. I retired after 30 years.
Yeah.
DRC has always still been a home to me. Because it was a family.
Yep.
We were a family. We had, 35 people working at the station. You become a family. Jim English, great guy, the Crow, and
the Crow.
Yourself, Bill Stevens. I worked with Jack Morgan. All the talent and the people there. We were all crazy, but we all had a good time. And Steve's dad was right. Fun radio. That's
but
exactly
I tell you,
the thing about You know, Dave, I think it's because we were all so young.
Yeah. Yep.
It was the beginning for so many of us.
Yeah.
Even though you may have we all kind of worked at other stations, but that was the first serious broadcasting move for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And I guess because Charlie was the guy who was controlling everything, running the ship, it was special.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Jim,
you're right.
Yeah. Where did you go? Tell us a little bit about your career after WDRC. Where did you go?
Well, let's see. I worked at WBZ in Boston doing swing and fill for a while, and which was an amazing experience. You know, I used to listen to WBZ when I was a kid, and I used to think, boy, that's a great station. You know, Jefferson Kay and Bruce Bradley and Dave Maynard, Carl DeSouza getting you on the morning go, and all these guys. And all of a sudden, I got a chance to work there, and that was an experience. Getting that job, by the way, I got to tell you this story. I thought it would be another formal job interview and another formal audition.
Yeah.
The program manager, a guy named Bob Oakes, who was a nice guy, he invited me into the station. We talked for a few minutes. Then he took me down to the on-air control room, of all places. And it was during the time I was in the room, they were in the news booth doing a 2-hour news program. So I wasn't, that room was off the air. And he literally said to me, okay, there's the mic switch. There's the switches for your turntables, and your cart machines are over here. Give me 20 minutes. And he walked out of the room, and the engineer in the other room, the master control at BC, his job was to just roll tape when I was ready. So I hit the intercom and said, okay, roll tape. And I had no real format to follow. I knew I was playing records.
Yeah.
And I gave him 20 minutes or half an hour of a show, and he hired me.
Wow.
And it was like, so I thank Charlie for that job too, because Charlie gave me the discipline to do it right.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. And I know your dad did one thing that I don't think any program director did, is he had me make a cassette of the audition. Then he would take it and put it in his car. He wanted to hear what the person sounded like out of his car radio.
Yep.
And if they fit, that sound, they get hired, or they didn't, But
Or sometimes, even the guys that would send, I mentioned this before, somebody would spend years sending air check after air check after air check, trying to get an opportunity. And one time, driving on the Cape, even though his career did come to a wild ending at DRC, Len Thomas was on like WCOD, and my dad's driving along the Cape, and boy, here's this guy. Man, this guy's incredible. Pulls over to the side of the road, and he always go looking for a phone booth, and he'd call the guy at the station. He said, would you like to come to Hartford? And he goes, Charlie Parker? He goes, yeah. He goes, I've been sending you I've been sending you air checks for years. And he goes, yeah, but it wasn't until I heard you on the radio in your own environment and could hear what was going on. Yeah. Because a lot of times, these guys would put, an air check together and they'd polish it and make sure it's just right and everything. Yes. But it wasn't a live sense, that you would have.
When we did auditions, or recorded auditions at DRC, I always told a person, I says, simulate as if you're on the air live. Yeah. If you make a mistake, you have to get out of it. Because your father wanted to hear
how he could
handle getting out of a mistake.
Your dad told me, don't play to the tape machine.
Yeah.
Play to the audience.
Yep.
And that's the difference between the audition tapes and being on the radio.
Yeah.
I can easily understand why Charlie would want the guy to come to Hartford, and after hearing him on the air, because it's a whole different thing. When you're on the air, you're kind of relaxed. You're in your environment. You got the job. You're having fun. When you do an audition, you're trying to impress some unknown face in a distant room,
Yeah.
and prove to them that you're a real good talent, and
And
it's not always.
Yeah, and one of the other things too is, because I told your dad this, I says, should I help them with any pronunciation? He says, if they ask. Only if they ask. And I would say to somebody, they come into the room, and I says, you have any questions on the copy, any pronunciations you like to clarify? And they'll look at it. A couple of them, and the smart ones did. I remember Jack Morgan. He says, is that Capaco or Capaco? I says, Capaco. Is it Sigourney Street or Sigourney Street? It's Sigourney Street. And the ones that asked always were the majority of the ones that got the job. And
Yep.
you mentioned Bill Rock.
I remember going to work in Hartford and running into towns like Tolland. I thought it was Toland.
Yeah.
The way it looks, yep.
Or you would think it would be the Berlin Turnpike, as opposed to the Berlin Turnpike. You know.
And I found out recently, though, on that, believe it or not, from a girl in her 20s. And she goes, it used to be Berlin, Connecticut. No, it used to be Berlin, Connecticut. I said, really? She goes, yep. They changed the accent on it when World War II broke out.
Oh,
that's why they went to Berlin instead of Berlin. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Those kids, they tell you every time,
Yeah,
that actually kind of makes sense.
Yep.
One of the funniest auditions I did there, and we'll talk to him at some time in the future, was Bill Rock. You mentioned him earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Rock, now, Bill had worked at DRC in the 60s. And so he came back for another audition. And I remember it was snowing outside. Every 20 minutes, he had to run down 15 floors, get the elevator, 15 floors, go put in 25 cents for 10 minutes, and then run back upstairs. And his was such an entertainment because he'd screw up and then start laughing, and the both of us were laughing like crazy. And I actually have his audition tape, and I sent it to him. I said, Bill, remember this day? And he forgot about it.
Do you remember Judd Corsi?
Otis? Oh, yeah, Otis. Otis in the nighttime.
Yep.
Otis in the nighttime.
God bless his soul.
He was the first guy I ever saw who had a Honda Civic.
Yes.
He could touch the ground when he put his hand out the window.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think he had to inhale to get into it. And I thought to myself, oh, they'll never catch on.
Yeah.
Who wants a car that small? Well, there you go,
Yeah, he would, in fact, towards the end of his career, of course, he went on to do a great job with Bob DiCarlo and his Bob and Judd, and they did a great job. But he also had a business on the side called Foreplay. And Foreplay was all about, four wheels, 4-speed. He was always into cars, and it was Foreplay. Nice. But just an amazing guy. He went on to San Diego, and this was great.
Yeah.
And I'm out in San Diego visiting my wife's family, and I'm watching television. They said, meet radio personality Judd Otis. And I went, no. And I called the radio station, and I said, I know you're not going to give me his telephone number. However, if you can get a hold of Judd Otis and just tell him Steve Parker's in town. He called up. We went out and had just a tremendous dinner right there. Beautiful, beautiful restaurant right on the water in San Diego. And then then all of a sudden he goes, he was, man, how you doing? And he would always, the big voice that would boom through the whole restaurant. And then afterwards we're walking out, and Kelly goes, you could stay here a little longer, with Otis if you want to. I said, I'm good. I said, a little bit Otis. Oh my God, he always. And one last thing, I mean, when my dad died, Otis couldn't get there from Florida. So he always played Stairway to Heaven every night. And he would try to see if he could drive that Honda to Windsor Locks before the song ended from Hartford. And it was funny because he sent this beautiful wreath right there at the funeral home as you walked in, and it had stairs going across it. And he said, he used to call my dad Big Roy, King of Funk, because he saw that my dad's middle name was Roy. He called me Little Roy. He'd say, hey, Big Roy, King of Funk, Stairway to Heaven, one more time. And I just thought, that was great.
Yeah, you had that playing at the funeral? Or?
No, he wanted Funeral for a Friend on a loop. Okay. with screaming electric guitars, Love Lies Bleeding.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, he wanted a rock and roll
And
goodbye.
What's ironic is I was in San Diego when your father passed away. And
See that?
I couldn't
Yep,
make it.
yep,
And
yep.
yeah, it was.
It was a heck of a celebration.
Yeah.
It really
Now,
was.
I understand you were close to a relative of a well-known Sunday night show on television. His name was Ned Solomon.
No, right here in our show, we have Rossi and Martin, the Three Stooges, Topo Gigio, and the entire Czechoslovakian army. Right?
Yeah.
Ned Solomon. Gosh, some things you'd like to forget.
No, that was a
You
good
know.
character. How did you come up with that? How did that all evolve?
I don't know. I must have had too much time on my hands, you know. And the other thing is when we did the Henry VIII
Yes.
song, that I think you engineered that, Dave.
Yeah, I did.
You know, and I was the local Big D version of Peter Noon.
Yeah.
And we changed the lyrics, and which was fun.
Yeah.
And Charlie aired it.
Yes.
Charlie
Yes.
ran it.
Yes, I know we did. Yeah, and I have a copy. I tried to find it, and with all my digitizing, it's in on one of my hard drives back down in Florida.
Ed Bruder.
I think ask Ed. Ed probably has a copy.
Yeah, he probably does.
It
Yeah, I
has
should have
everything.
looked on the obg.com.
Yep,
Oh,
yep.
well.
Yeah, the WDRCOBG.com is Ed's the great keeper of the flame of the WDRC flame. And
Yeah.
every time I've thrown something at him, I mean, no matter what it is, Rod Allen, who just died
Oh, yeah.
recently, God rest his soul, his children, I think, were up in Alaska, and somebody was talking about some bit that he had done. And I got another guy who called me and said, is there any way that his kids could get a hold of this bit that Rod did years ago? And I went, Ed Bruder. I get a hold of it, send an email to Ed within a day or two. Bing. Ed has
Wow.
everything.
Yeah,
God bless
without
him.
Ed Bruder,
I remember when Rod left to go to Alaska.
Pipeline.
It was the
Yep.
pipeline. He said, I'll never forget. He said to me, I said, why are you leaving radio? He said, they're paying 50. Now this is 1970. What, 2 or 3?
Yeah.
He said they're paying $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
Huge.
For starting pay.
Yeah.
And in 1973, $50,000 was like $150,000.
And
You know,
he loved it up there.
200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. He turned into a real Alaskan guy and had a family and everything else up there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Jim,
Nice
I think
guy.
this is time to say goodbye. We've spent our time here with you for sure.
We did it already?
Yeah, we did it
I thought
already.
this was the warm-up.
No, this isn't the
You
one.
guys are amazing. You asked me where I went. I didn't answer the whole.
Oh,
I
yeah.
went to CBS. I went to CBS FM. Went to KDKA in Pittsburgh. I went to 3WS at Pittsburgh. Worked to WTAE in Pittsburgh. I think I covered it all. So, you know,
Did you ever run into
I'm sure
Dan?
there-
Did you ever run into Danny Samasco at KDKA?
it's funny you should say that. I met it when I first got to KDKA. I did. He had worked there at KDKA, and then he left to work at a place called Fisher Scientific.
Oh,
And,
really?
He was a great engineer, great production guy.
Great producer.
Oh, he was.
You know, he did
He
the
was a
father of
talented guy.
audio.
I was
Yeah, he did the father of audio production. And we'll talk about that sometime. We'll try and get him.
I was going
on
to
the
ask
phone.
you whether you guys ran into him at all, Danny, but
No, once he left, I totally lost contact with him.
what a
and
shame.
I would have loved to. I like to get a hold of him. Got to talk to Ed Bruder. He'll have it. And just do a phone interview with him, and we'll play the father of audio production. And I learned a lot from Danny. I really did. I learned the 2-track, multi-track system, and then when I got into the computer, doing audio and computer, I didn't have 2 channels. I had 99.
Yeah.
I was in my glory, you know. So yeah, same thing. But Jim,
Thank you, Jim.
thank you very much.
Dave and Steve, you know, I love you guys. You are the best. Please give my regards to all of my old friends
Will do.
in Hartford.
Yeah,
that-
and we'll
that-
be looking forward to catching you out on the porch in a few weeks. So we'll be looking for you.
I hope I can get there.
Well,
I
I-
can't promise anything.
I will say though, in all fairness, a lot of the guys are all over the country, and Jim really did. Jim was able to catch up with one of our reunions one year because
Yeah.
it is a long
Yeah.
travel, and that's why getting you on tape like this is wonderful because it is a tough thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I know that you're always with us in spirit. There's no doubt about it. And
Yeah.
just the fact that you took all this time today, and just being here in West Hartford, the fact that he would not drive over here to sit. Oh no, he's not. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Jim.
Jim, take
love
care
you
and
guys.
God bless.
Love you too. Take
Hey,
care,
have
man.
a good time at the reunion if I don't get there.
Yes,
right.
thank you.
Bye bye.
That's a
Bye.
great interview we had with Jim. Fantastic. You know?
He's terrific.
Andy, you going to record that now? You can start to record. No,
No,
we
he
actually
didn't hit
haven't.
that little button that says record.
Yeah. When do you want me to record? I used to do that. Be sitting there and it'd be all done. And be, oh, that was hard. I says, when do you want me to start recording, Charlie?
Well, that was like we did that entire parade in Newington.
Yes.
And we asked the guy that was shooting the camera, said, how was it? There was no audio. And I said, an hour and a half, no audio? Oh, I don't like to wear those things on my ears. You mean the headphones? To maybe tell me maybe the mic was off or something?
Yeah.
Silence for an hour and a half.
Yes.
I was like, yep, but it happened. But yeah, he's terrific. Nice
And-
job. I'm glad I came in.
Yeah,
Glad to see
and
you.
I'm glad you did too. And next time on WDRC Remembers,
Remember. Echo.
we have a surprise guest.
Ooh, this
And
is a
I'm
big
not
one.
going
It's
to
a
tell
big
you
one.
anymore.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
I can't believe we got him.
Yep.
A him, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, it's not-
Yep.
okay.
Yep. We got Gino the Chicken Man.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. We could do, Joe Bagels. Oh,
Joe
yeah.
Joe Bagels. Yeah. So join us next time on WDRC Remembers. Dave Overson for Steve Parker.
Steve Parker, Dave Overson.
Dave, yeah. It's good.
Good
That's
night,
my one.
everybody. Careful driving and have a great breakfast.
Yeah.